Welcome to the Wrestling with Goals, the Conceive, Believe, and Achieve podcast. Man, that is a mouthful. Today's guests, not guest, but today's guests, we have two of them. This is the first time for our podcast. We have the amazing race contestants, not even contestants, they're the winners. And the wrestlers, guys, they are wrestlers. So this is a special episode dedicated to Taylor McPherson. I got that one right. Let's see if I can get Katie's last name. Mulcahy. Awesome. All right. Well, first, I want to start off with just saying congratulations. Thank you for coming on the show. I know you're busy with other engagements and getting famous here in Canada. So thank you for making the time for us here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So you guys have heard of us. We've already talked off camera a little bit. So, but you know, I've watched The Amazing Race before, more so the American one, and I have watched the Canadian as well. So could you tell me a little bit about the idea for you guys? Like, how did this come about?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, after, Kitty and I talked about the show a lot, we never once thought that we would be on reality TV, let alone TV just in general. But basically the idea came about because I saw, a post on Instagram and it was like calling for Amazing Race applicants. And I was like, this sounds interesting. Like they haven't had Olympic style wrestlers on the show before. I used to watch this show in my younger days with my parents or family. So I was like, you know what? This could be a cool opportunity. So let's go for it. And Katie basically just said, say less and I'll drop whatever I need to drop to go do this with you. So that's how we got here.
Wow, pretty exciting. And then I guess you were selected and you must have been pretty excited about that.
Oh yeah.
Big time, yeah. We hoped that we would get on and we fingers crossed, but we had something unique about ourselves. So, I think we were pretty, thought that we'd get on, but until we actually got the message saying that you guys are on, we were both like jaw dropped to the floor, filled with excitement and couldn't believe it, but we're ready for that journey.
Mm-hmm. Now, I imagine after you got the notification that you're on the show or whoever contacted you, imagine you had to be quiet about that.
Oh yeah. We had to stay quiet for quite a while there. Even especially after it was after it was filmed, but it was well worth it.
And in this day and age when social media is out there, it's really hard to keep a secret, isn't it? I know, especially with TV shows or movies. I don't know if you remember the movie Star Wars. You're probably too young for that, but the second one, when it was revealed that Darth Vader was going to be Luke's father, they actually only told a select amount of people, and they told the actor Mark Hamill and Luke Skywalker at the last minute, and he had to hold on to that secret until the movie came out. And so I imagine you guys were probably similar to that. Was like, hey, I can't say anything.
Yeah,
it was a lot of stay tuned.
Yeah,
that came on Tuesday. We kept on pushing that to help us through the airing of the show, and but kind of avoid.
Hopefully we have another watch party. Everybody's always like, "Oh, when's the next watch party?" We're like, "I don't know. We'll see."
Yeah, you gotta keep your friends guessing, eh? Keep them watching the show. That's awesome. So when your friends found out that you were on the show, and of course, I mean, I found out through social media. Is that how most of your friends found out?
I'd say majority of them, because when there was that posting of showing all the contestants, that's kind of when we were able to share it. And so a lot of people probably saw it on social media first, and they're like, "Wait, what? That from Katie? What?"
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people were shocked and excited for us, of course.
Yeah.
And that was done after production?
Yeah. So they posted about like a month later that who the contestants were and that season 10 was starting up in July. So
Can I ask how long the filming actually took for you to keep your mouth shut?
Yeah, so it was about a month.
Oh, okay, so it was travel. It wasn't too much out of your life then.
No.
Oh, okay, so those of you that are looking at maybe to do it yourself, only a month out of your life.
Yeah.
What do you guys do? Currently, Is it work or school? Because you had to take a month out of your life to kind of do this. So what do you guys do?
Yeah, so for myself, I'm actually subbing for Edmonton Public School Board. So I'm an active sub. So it's kind of easier for me to take some time off. But I'm also still wrestling with the University of Alberta club team. So that was kind of all my responsibilities there at the time, was just subbing and wrestling. So it's kind of easy for me to pack up everything and get on the show.
Get on the road. And for myself, I'm still currently in school. I'm in graduate studies right now, taking a master's of science in kinesiology. So it put a little pause on my research because, obviously had to take some time away. But I also work for the Indigenous Sport Council of Alberta, and I run sport and recreation programming for Indigenous youth and families across the province of Alberta. And then as well as, I'm giving back to the wrestling community. I'm coaching with the Pandas as an assistant, and then the Edmonton Wrestling Club as well. So yeah, a few things were put on pause for myself.
And there was people that could understood and said, hey,
Oh yeah.
help you out with his journey.
For sure.
Oh yeah, we had nothing but support from, like Coach Dawkins and from our work. And it was really tough too, because we only told a select few people that we were gonna be away, right? And the rest of the people, our friends and our teammates, and people were like, where did Taylor and Katie go? And we were talking about applying. And they're like, are they on the show? But we just fell off the face of the earth. So people, when we got back, they were like, this is suspicious. They were like, yeah, how is your
but
your mysterious Europe?
Yeah. No photos, no videos, nothing to show.
Social media went just quiet.
Oh yeah, and I'm Katie was trying to tell me for a while. She's like, Taylor, you need to start now so that it's not suspicious. And so I tried, but I couldn't stop posting on my
I'm like, get off social media, Taylor.
And the second we returned, it was like, boom, story. She's like, Taylor.
So it was harder for you to keep quiet.
Definitely harder for her, 100%.
Well, hey, let's just talk about big shout out to Owen Dawkins. We just had him on the show last week. And he kept his mouth shut. He didn't tell me about you guys, how it turned out for you guys. So, so I'm assuming you guys met in wrestling practice.
Yes, we did. It was I think it was my first year, Taylor's second year.
Oh yeah, second. Yeah.
That's when we're on the team together. But we really became friends during my second year, and we've been kind of best friends ever since. I think wrestling definitely brought us together, obviously, and then we just kind of found that we were outside of the mat and just found our friendship through there. But yeah, we could definitely thank wrestling for helping us form our friendship now, and look at where we are. We wouldn't be friends if it wasn't for wrestling and just everything we've accomplished, and even just having that to show on the race. So it's kind of amazing how things work out. And yeah, it's actually funny too. Taylor and I were actually supposed to go on a trip before university on a wrestling trip together, but ended up getting canceled. And it's just kind of funny that how our paths would have crossed earlier on. And Taylor actually wrestled one of my sisters in high school. So it's kind of funny as we got to know each other. I was like, wait a second. She's like, I thought I wrestled you. And I'm like, no, I thought we were sisters. And then she found out that, wait a second, she wrestled my older sister. So it's just the funniest thing that it's like, oh, our paths crossed earlier on. So it's kind of like we were meant to be friends.
Yeah.
So, sorry, where are you guys from? Originally, are you from Alberta?
Yeah. So I'm from just outside Edmonton. I live in Sherwood Park.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm from Calgary, Alberta. So grew up in Calgary and then moved out to U of A or Edmonton for U of A.
Yeah, so I got to educate our guests because some of us Canadians don't take the time to actually look at an atlas. And I'm dating myself. An atlas, Google it, huh?
Google Maps.
Where from? So I know what a telephone is when it's attached to the wall. You guys probably too young for that.
I had the wireless one.
Yes. So, Yeah, so wrestling, the one thing you said you guys were friends, right? You're in the room,
Mhm.
the wrestling room, Owen's wrestling room, the U of A.
Mhm.
You guys are actually training partners too?
No.
No.
I'm
Know each other at
No.
all?
Taylor's lower weight class. I was a higher weight class. Just it wouldn't have worked
Oh,
out.
I mean, we've had a few times, fun times rolling around on the mat, but, like,
yeah.
the last time I kinda decided to roll around with her was when she snapped my face through the mat, so I was like, "Yo, you're too strong for me."
And you guys are still friends. Like, that's the part
Yeah.
about wrestling. You'll beat the snot out of each other. You still shake hands, you hug or whatever, and be friends, go out together. Like, that's the crazy part.
Yeah.
Most people would think, after I get my ass booted, around in a wrestling room, I'm not gonna pay attention to that person. That person's
Yeah.
behind me. But one of the things about wrestling is the fact that you form bonds in those
Yeah.
situations. And I'm assuming that's why you chose each other.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Mhm. And how did that work out as you guys had a friendship? How did that work out for you guys when you were on the show, completing some of the tasks?
I definitely think it helped because, right, with wrestling, you got the physical side, you got the mental side, it's the individual, but then you're also on a team sport. So it's a bit of
Yeah.
everything where I think that's a little bit different than other sports. And just like the tough grit that it takes to be a wrestler is just different than anything. I've done other sports and there's nothing like wrestling. So I think
No.
with both of us coming from a wrestling background, basically we could do anything. I felt, we
Yeah.
could go push through any challenge and help one another because a lot of times, right, with wrestling tournaments, you're watching your teammates and you're there, you're encouraging them whenever you
Mhm.
can. So you know how to uplift and support those people, in practices. You
Yeah.
see, you have really tough practices where you're struggling and you got to try to uplift your partner, your teammates, right? Because in that room, whatever that energy is, that's what's going to help encourage you and that's going to help make you a better
Mhm.
wrestler. So, I think very much Taylor and I wanted to support each other through and through, and we were able to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like, even just going through our 5 or 6 years together on the mat, like, we already knew how to support each other. Like, she knows how I get, I know how she gets. And that's the one nice thing is, like, she knows I'm a crier. Like, that's just who I am as a
Yeah.
person. And she just
Yeah.
knows to, like, give me my 5 seconds, 5 minutes, whatever I need to just, like, let it out. And then she's like, okay, let's recollect and get to work now. And so, that's the one cool thing because if I had gone with anyone else who doesn't really like understand how I am emotionally, they'd be yelling at me. They'd be like, "Rose, stop crying! Like it's not the time." Like she only yelled at me once for it, so it's great. Like, but so it's like it's stuff like that, and just having like won national championships together, gone to world championships together. We have that bond of being able to travel with one another but also learning how to fail with one another, and I think that's what really helped us throughout it all too.
Mhm. So we have wrestlers from the University of Alberta, but not just competitors. That you guys are actually national level wrestlers. You've been to the World Championships, so just let's get that out there for the audience as well. So guys are at the
Mhm.
top level of our national, and you've been to the World Champions representing Canada. So it's what I'm trying to say is that you guys have honed your craft. You guys not only have physically but mentally. You're saying is that is
Mhm.
when you are on the show, looking to your other competitors, did you see that kind of, I guess, that camaraderie in them, or and were those the ones that you thought were, if they did you think they were a threat to you, or how did it feel?
I think with some of the other teams, right there, they had a sport background. So,
Mhm.
understanding that, sports brings a different sort of teamwork and, ethic to work and things. So I think like the baseball players, Michael and Tyson, obviously we knew that they were going to be some sort of threat because
Yeah.
of what they've accomplished in their sport. And just,
Mhm.
you could tell that they were true friends and, knew how to work with one another. And you could sense it just from their bond from the beginning. And then
Yeah.
obviously we had the twins, Lauren and Nicole. Well, they're twins. They know each other more than anybody else, right?
Yeah.
So they got the closest friendship probably on that out of everybody else, right? They've known each other since birth,
Yeah.
roommates, we could say. So, and I understand. I have a twin, and my twin is I'm so close with my twin. She's my best friend, so I can only understand what that would be like. for the two of them. So obviously we saw other teams as threats.
Yeah.
But you know what? Even with Taylor and I, and like we've, you know, although we haven't known each other our whole lives, she fits into like my family just like another sister. So, you know, I knew we wouldn't have a problem there. We know, like Taylor was saying, we understand how to communicate with one another.
Mhm.
And we just kind of found that, you know, if we're yelling at each other, if we're getting mad, we weren't mad at each other. We were mad at the situation or the challenge that we were facing in that moment. So we just
Mhm.
had to try to find a way to work through it. And yeah, like never through the show was I ever truly mad or, you know, upset with Taylor. I just, you know, didn't like the challenge that we were dealing with. And I knew
Mhm.
that, you know, if she's struggling, it's just making me upset because I don't like to see her struggle. I don't like to see her, you know, have all that weight on her shoulders, feeling like she's letting me down. And same for me, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, you know, typical reality TV. You know, in my era when it started off, it was Survivor.
Yeah.
Uh, and I can tell you, people bought into it because of the the car wreck situations when you had,
Yeah.
you know, emotional wrecks when, you know, and that was good for TV.
Yeah.
Years later, you know, I've got to the point where I shut off reality TV because here to watch that is people bringing down people all the time.
Yeah.
You know, cutting a
Yeah.
person's character. You know, in fact, you know, in life, when somebody kind of slights you, you say, "Well, it's your Survivor Island. Somebody's trying to, you know, vote you off the island," right?
Yeah.
Um,
No, totally.
Mhm.
it sounds like you guys had that beat because the team that you belonged to a team and you knew each other.
Yeah, I think so. And honestly, like when I think about like our experience on the race, wrestling seriously played such a huge part in our success or our successes in it. Like honestly, when you think about for example, like roadblocks, like those are single person challenges, right? So one of the partners is going and doing the challenge on their own while the other partner watches, right? And when I think of wrestling, I think of Canada West Championships. You know, we're all a team out on that mat, right? But at the end of the day, Canada West Championships, you have your whole team lined up on the side of that mat, cheering you on, screaming at you, and you feel the weight of the world on your shoulders in that moment because you're like, holy crap, I can't lose this match. Sometimes you're the first match, sometimes you're the last match. And that's when even more weight is on your shoulders because you're like, I need to start us off in a good way. I was always the lightweight, right? So I was always the first one to wrestle. I'm like, man, if I lose this match, I could potentially create a snowball effect, right? And so, and on top of that, like you usually want to get the 5 points for your team because if you don't, then what happens if it's the last person and they can't get that 5 point win and it's maybe a matter of 1 point between the two teams, right? So I think like even just having those high stress situations throughout our sport really prepared us for high stress situations within the race and just in life in general. Like, we take a lot of these skills that we learn within our sport and really apply them to our life. And I think the race was a really good depiction of how wrestling has prepped us for any challenge that is really thrown at us.
There's a saying in wrestling, and you guys have probably heard this. A competitor by the name of Dan Gable, 1972, was on the U.S. Olympic team and competed at the Munich Games with my dad at the time. But he said, once you've wrestled, everything else is easier.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
I agree with it.
Exactly how it felt. Seriously.
And why do you think that is? Like, explain why that's one phrase means so much.
You know what? I think for like myself, it's not, if you just look at some of like your schedule, your practice schedule, it's
Mhm.
tough. You know, there's a lot of grind in the season. The season is longer than other sports seasons as well, right? There's sometimes where we don't stop training year round. You just
Ever.
keep going and going and going. It's the 6 a.m. practices. It's the fact that for wrestling, we do everything ourselves. You know, we don't have other people setting up our tournaments. You know, we're having to set up our tournament, go and wrestle it, take it down. You know, we are
Mhm.
responsible for everything. And I find that that helps us in our sport because, you know, you don't take things for granted. You know, you're
Mhm.
putting everything out there. You know, you want to set it up and make it look nice. But then when it comes to these tournaments, right? I think it's when you lose and it's an individual sport, you put a lot of that weight and everything, it's on yourself, right? It's you and one other person on the mat, somebody who's your same physical strength and ability you know, you're going against, and it requires this different type of mental strength, you know, not just physical, but that mental side that other teams with, especially sport, like team sports, they don't have to deal with that. They have their whole team to kind of build them up and encourage them. But when you're on that mat, yes, we have a team behind us, but when you're on that mat, it's 1v1. You know, it's just you. If it, whatever you're thinking mentally, if you say to yourself like, "Oh, I'm gonna lose," well, you're gonna lose. So it's that mental game. Like, wrestling is such a mental sport, and if you're not sound mentally, like, that's where you're gonna struggle. You know, and other sports, they have their teammates to help. Okay, you got it. One more, but nobody else can do anything. Once you're on that mat, it's your go. It's go time. You know, you have 6 minutes. You have to make the most of it. So, you know, there's that part of it where it's tougher. You know, like I said, I've done other sports. I've done rugby, and I've played football, and I've done soccer, and nothing beats wrestling.
No.
That physical side. You have to be physically and mentally tough to be a wrestler. It's not for the faint at heart.
It isn't. It's easily the toughest sport in the world. And, you know, it's so funny because, you know, I have a little brother and he plays football. He played football for the UFC for a few years until he had an ACL injury. But he went back to like one varsity practice because he was like, yeah, I might try wrestling again, you know? And I was like, okay, like, have fun. And he calls me right after the practice. Holy crap, Taylor. Wrestling is the hardest sport in the world. He's like, I forgot how hard it was. He's like, I'm like, yeah, go tell your football friends that. He's like, I know, I will, because like, man, he's like, they don't understand like how tough wrestlers are. And I'm like, yeah. And he actually just recently decided to quit football and go back into wrestling this year. So he's gonna, you know, be wrestling for UFC. We'll see how it goes. I'm really excited for him. My mom's excited to see more matches, you know, considering I'm not really wrestling as much anymore. But, you know, it's just so funny because seriously, like, you really can't compare this sport to anything else. And, you know, as much as you like to think other things are hard in life, wrestling is hard. Like, I don't know what other people in the world besides like other MMA athletes decide to go to 2-hour practices and just beat the crap out of one another. Like, you have to be a certain level and certain kind of person to be able or want to do that. It's like you wake up at 5 a.m. to get to 6 a.m. and you're like, yeah, I'm just gonna go roll around, get all sweaty, and just beat the crap out of one another. Like, you don't do that as a normal person. So.
Well, I can tell you, I mean, you mentioned MMA, but personally, I've done, so I've wrestled. I wrestled down in Michigan. Also, I've done MMA. I'm a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I've boxed as well. And I will tell you, the only sport that demands the most of you is wrestling. In fact, you talked about football, but the former coach for the University of Michigan, in one of his podcasts, he says, I love recruiting wrestlers. They are the hardest anywhere on the face of the earth. And it's true. I mean, you look at a wrestler, and if they've been wrestling for long enough, they come into the room ready to work. If you don't, what happens? You get beat up.
You get beat up, and you get sprints, and you get a lot of shit.
Yeah. So your accountability is, there's a huge exposure to your accountability in those rooms. It's an individual sport, but it's a team sport.
Yeah.
But your team holds you accountable if you're not going to perform.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Amazing. Let's talk about, and we talked a little bit about Owen, but how much did the culture of the team play into your performance on the show?
I think, you know, like culture, like, are you referring to like culture of like U of A and or just
coaching culture?
Totally.
For you guys.
It's huge. Like, I mean, you know, Owen has always been our number one cheerleader within our sport. He's always believed in us more than we believed in us. And, you know, like, that's the thing, like coming out of high school, like I wasn't always the top performer, you know, I wasn't a national team athlete. But he understood the work ethic and the potential that was to come out of me. And it was the same for Katie. I mean, she was actually pretty strong and, you know, whatnot, but being a rookie, he just kind of, you know,
but like even for me, I was a walk-on onto the university. Like if it wasn't for Owen, I wouldn't have wrestled in university. I was going to University of Alberta regardless. And I didn't really have, didn't plan to be on the wrestling team, but Owen kind of just reached out to me and was like, well, you wrestled in high school. Do you want to come give it a go? And I was like, sure. He goes, come to one practice, see what it's like. So I did. And I've been here ever since. And I think just for me, like, he saw my work ethic. He saw that, you know, I wasn't the best. And, you know, when I first came on the team, but then when it came to tournaments, he was like, no, you have what it takes. Like, you can do this sport. And he just saw the drive and my dedication to want to be there and my work ethic. And I'm still here. But if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have been a part of this wrestling, I guess, this wrestling community.
Exactly. And I think, like, you know, our teammates played a huge role in us as well. Like, you know, I think for so many years on our team, we've worked hard to build a good culture within our room. Yes, we push each other. Yes, we get mad at each other if we're not at practice or you're not doing the things that you need to do. But at the end of the day, it's because we all care about one another. You know, it's held us accountable. It's, you know, showed us that, like, you know, even though you may have moved away from your family, you have another family here that's here to push you and watch you succeed and help make sure that you can be the best person that you can be when you step out of that room or when you step onto that mat, right? And so I think for us too, like, wrestling just creates good people overall. Like, we care not only about ourselves, but our teammates and about our coaches. And you're just one giant family. And that's wrestling.
Yeah. And I think you just want to be the best kind of partner. When I'm wrestling and I feel like, you know, if I'm having a day where I'm like, you know, and I'm tired and I'm, oh, like, you know, you have a lot going on even outside of wrestling. Well, you got to put that aside because, you know, I want to be a good partner for everybody else in the room, right? It's like if I'm having a bad day, well, then I'm going to push that onto other people. So, you know, we like leave it outside of the room. When you come into this wrestling room, let's focus on wrestling. Let's get through this practice so that we can have a good practice and feel accomplished. And, you know, I like feeling like I'm supporting my other teammates by being a good partner, but I also want that from them. If they're having a bad day, you know, I'm like, I'm not going to want to wrestle you if you're, you know, if you're not giving me what I need. So then it forces everybody to kind of step up because everybody wants to be there for everybody.
Mm-hmm.